Hey everyone, it's Blake here from ChessPathways.com doing some more blitz battles today. So let's see how this goes. We get a Sicilian defense, and I will go for the open Sicilian, which is what I usually play against the Sicilian. And okay, we get this, and black has many possible options, and it looks like we're going to get a Sveshnikov. Definitely a very strategically interesting opening. We can come back after the game and talk about a lot of the nuances here. It's going to be a big fight for this d5 square, and I'm going to eliminate this knight and play knight to d5 to avoid the fork. f5, and I don't have to defend this pawn right away. I have c3. We can talk about why after the game. You're going to play bishop g7. Now I take, and now I use this bishop on f5 to swing this knight back into the game. Knight c2, knight e3. This is all the main line, at least the main line of this bishop takes f6 variation that I play on move 9. And black has a couple choices here. Bishop e6 is a move, castle is a move. But my general idea is, okay, I want to play knight e3. If you play bishop e6, I would play bishop d3, and then queen h5 and attack you. If you play bishop g6, then the move is h4. And I don't know a whole lot about this variation, other than that you meet bishop g6 with h4, and kind of try to expand here on the king side, exploit the fact that black has kind of a missing g-pawn, and possibly even play h5, h6 in some cases. And meanwhile, your knight's very, very strong here on the d5 square, but black does have the bishop pair, and potentially the space advantage after f5 at the right moment. So very imbalanced, very interesting openings you usually get here out of the Sveshnikov, and we'll see how black handles this. I think they often play h6 in this line, just stopping h5, h6, because they don't think they can allow just h5, h6, and possibly even queen g4 in some cases, and it could be very dangerous for the king. Okay, yeah, h6, I thought that's one of the main moves, and I think here you still play h5 anyways. I'm trying to remember, it's been quite a while since I prepared this. And no one has played this against me recently, so we'll see how this goes. But okay, h5, you're going to play bishop h7. And, okay, I guess I would consider myself out of preparation here. Time to think on my own. Bishop d3 is a candidate move. Queen g4 is a candidate move. I know you want to play f5 and expand in the center. Also, you often play a4 in the Sveshnikov to kind of, try to isolate this b-pawn. And if they take, then they have an isolated a-pawn. So that could be an idea. It's hard to calculate out like one specific option, which is a position a lot of players find themselves in. Everything looks reasonable. I'm going to play bishop e2. I might still want a castle, even though I've played h4, h5. I'm not sure if that's a great option. But yeah, I have to watch out for this f4, f5, of course. You might want to play f4, f3. That's part of why I wanted the bishop here on e2 to stop f3 at some moment. So how scared am I of f4 here? I guess that's a question I have to ask myself. Maybe I shouldn't have played bishop e2. So f4, how scary is it? f4, the problem is my knight doesn't have a great square. I guess I could go to c2. Let's play a4, because this is just generally a good move. I want to see how black responds. I'm threatening your b-pawn. If you play f4, my idea is I could play knight c2, possibly coming to b4 and increasing the pressure. And you can't play f3 too easily because I have the knight there. Okay. So I can take that pawn. That's still a free pawn. Do I take with the pawn or the knight? Probably. I think I might actually take with the knight. Not typically what you would do, but I kind of want this knight to have a good square to go to if it gets kicked away. So let's play knight takes, and I am up a pawn. For what it's worth. I know they're double pawns, but in blitz, a pawn's a pawn. So now I'd love to go to the endgame and just try to make a passed pawn and win that way. Meanwhile, a6 is still weak. It's isolated, my bishop's eyeing it, so it stops your rook from getting too active, potentially. Bishop c4 is an idea, queen b3 is an idea, knight d5 is an idea. I think this is pretty pleasant for white. But I am scared of your big center and two bishops, so we'll see how it goes. So looking for black's candidate moves here, certainly f4 is one, but I think there, now I just play knight d5 and I don't see a big concern. Yeah, this makes sense, trying to eye my g2 pawn. And how do I want to handle this? I could just play bishop c4 check and bishop d5 to defend g2. I kind of like that. Although, I guess there's the argument the knight might want that square. But my idea is maybe the bishop comes to d5, the knight comes to c4, where it can eye the d6 pawn. And I kind of like this setup. Bishop d5, possibly followed by knight c4 at the right moment. Also, where does your rook go? Okay, I can go there. I guess I probably want to defend b4, and I can meet f4 with, I guess, just knight c4, so let's do it. Keep everything under control. And this square is often the big problem for black in the Sveshnikov. How does black, maintain control of this very strong d5 outpost? Okay, so they're going to play e4 and just open up their dark bishop. Makes sense. This might also increase the impact of f4 if they can play it later. I kind of want to make sure that doesn't come with tempo and just play knight c4 right away and offer to trade queens. Although the problem is now if the queens come off, then b2 falls. But I don't really care about b2. I mean, that's my doubled pawn, and I still have the strong majority. Oh, never mind. The knight defends b2, so I think I'm fine there. In any case, I can just take with the king. I would take with the king if you exchange queens here, for sure. And I think I'd be very, very happy in that endgame. So you probably don't want to go for that. Oh, aha, of course, you cut off the bishop. Right. Maybe I even castle long. It looks scary, but why not? Connect the rooks, possibly play rook g1. The problem is, the pair of bishops count for a lot here. This dark, unopposed bishop is a great defender of the black king. So I'd really like to get queens off the board, I think, at least in many cases. But meanwhile, I can target this d6 isolated, not isolated, but a backwards pawn. a6 could still be a target. And I don't see any immediate threats to my king. Rook c8, I just play king b1, I believe. I don't think that's a huge deal. Could even play knight takes d6 next turn if you don't stop me, and I think I probably would. Especially because it comes with tempo, it comes with the knight f7 threat, which is actually a very serious threat. The king would have to walk into the bishop. So black definitely has to stop knight takes d6, at least as far as I can see. They're down to 23 seconds, I have 45. Okay, they don't stop it. Well, let's play it, I guess. We get a tempo on the rook, and we're threatening knight f7. What's your threat? Oh, you want to play... Okay, you want to play e3. Yeah, that was close. Yeah, always look for your opponent's checks, captures, and threats, of course. I caught myself there. Even though it's blitz, got to be disciplined. So how do we stop that? That's actually pretty annoying. Knight takes d6, e3. Yeah, that's out of consideration. Well, is it? Because that would actually hang your queen, too. Knight takes d6, e3, king e1. You take my queen, I take your queen? Okay, I just got to go for it because I'm running so low on time. You're going to play e3... with check. I would play king a1. You take my queen, I take your queen, and I'm still threatening your rook and your pawn on d2. And you have to play e3. There's no other move, because yeah, okay. King a1, you take my queen, I take your queen. I think it's forced, right? What? Really? Well, let's play this. Let's play this with check. Maybe this wasn't the right way to go about this, because now your king kind of gets out. Yeah, maybe this wasn't the best. Okay, let's take. It's just going to be a time scramble. I want to get something on the f-file, but it's not very easy to do so. Okay, let's play this to keep the attack on your queen and threaten rook f1. And how does your king survive? Okay, takes. This is all going to come down to a time scramble, unfortunately. Let's play here. Is there no checkmate? There probably is a checkmate that I'm missing. Of course. Oh my gosh. And I lose on time. Alright, well, that was a disappointing one. Probably played too slow. Actually, looking at this final position now, if I did play bishop a2 and didn't lose on time, my mouse kind of slipped there a little bit. I'm not sure why it didn't let me play it the first time. But is this winning for me? I'm threatening queen f7 mate, I'm threatening rook takes f6, and you don't actually have... Well, okay, you could play here rook takes a2, huh? Even there, though, I don't have to take with the king. I could take with the queen and maintain my queen f7 threat. It's very interesting. Let's actually hop over to the analysis board. And I can talk a little about this opening. So, okay, e4, c5, we get a Sveshnikov. e4, takes, e5. And yeah, this often becomes a big battle, especially after bishop g5, which is the main move here. White wants to trade off the bishop for the knight. Black can often take with the pawn and get this giant mass of pawns in the center, and it becomes a battle between black's space advantage and the pair of bishops, and white's excellent control of the d5 outpost. So bishop g5, a6, knight a3, b5. This is all the main line of the Sveshnikov Sicilian. And now white has two lines. You can play bishop takes, f6, followed by knight d5, or you can play knight d5 right away. They're both very popular. I chose bishop takes f6. And here, black really has to take with the g-pawn. Some players here have tried to take with the queen, but it's actually pretty bad for black to play this way. Think about what you would play here with white, just knowing what you know about this position. So I think the best way to play for white is knight d5, forcing them to play queen d8, right? And now you play c4. striking at this extended b pawn, just like we saw in the game. And it's kind of hard for black to have an answer to this, because I believe b4 gets hit with queen a4 with all kinds of potential threats. There's all these knight c7 fork ideas and some critical lines. The b pawn's actually hanging here. Same thing, I believe, if you take. I think queen a4 is very strong. You can look into this, of course, play some practice games, but I believe this is very, very favorable for white. So because black doesn't really have a great answer to c4 here, they often don't want to go for this, and they want to take with the g-pawn. So okay, knight d5, I have to step out of the fork. Black definitely wants to use these f-pawns as kind of a battering ram to take over the center, so f5. But here, I didn't defend e4 right away, I played c3. Think about why black cannot play f takes e4 here if you'd like. Alright, if you're back with me. So on f takes e4, white actually has bishop takes b5, which is very, very strong, especially because this queen has access to g4 now, as we're about to see. For example, here, after a takes b5, knight takes b5, knight c7 is a very serious threat, not only threatening to win the exchange, but also threatening checkmate. I've won a couple blitz games this way after rook b8, knight c7, king d7 is forced, and queen g4 is actually checkmate after f5, queen takes f5. So this sacrifice becomes very, very strong if this f-pawn is missing, so black should not allow this, and that's why black plays bishop g7, not only activating a piece, not only pressuring the center, but now their king has an escape, and that means they really are threatening f takes e4. So this is the right moment to take on f5, bishop takes, knight c2. This is the main line of the bishop takes f6 variant of the Sveshnikov. So bishop takes f5, knight c2, castle, knight e3, and now black has two moves, bishop e6 or bishop g6. Bishop e6 is much more common, and there the line I play is bishop d3, f5, and queen h5. And again, it's this big battle between white's outposts and black's space advantage. Here, for example, you can't just play f4, of course, because you get mated on h7. So I believe it continues e4, bishop c2. Often white follows up with knight f4. That's also an outpost now. Bishop b3 in some cases. And it's a very, very interesting position. I would highly encourage you to do some research here if you're interested. Play some training games. Very fun line for both colors. But in the game, black chose to respond to this with bishop g6 instead of bishop e6, trying to keep this bishop kind of more active, but it's also vulnerable to h4. So I played h4, and this is the moment where I'm actually going to consult with the database and just make sure that my understanding is correct, that h6 is the main move. Let's just check this. Okay, h6 is common. Bishop e4 is also a move. That's very interesting. And this is the research you want to do after every chess game you play. No matter what your rating is, you can always learn one new thing about openings from every chess game you play. There's always going to be this first moment where you weren't sure what to do, and you can do some research. So I'm kind of curious how bishop e4 is handled. Okay, interesting. h5 has scored well, bishop d3 has scored well. I'm just kind of curious to get some sample games of how this might go. h5 is met with queen g5, it seems. Which makes sense, because otherwise h6 and queen g4 seems very, very scary here for black. Or even queen g4 first, and then h6. Queen g4 with tempo followed by h6. So I guess the downside of h5 is it allows queen g5, but then you just play bishop e2. And okay, there's been some games here, h6, and even rook h3 is an idea. Just trying to get some ideas in my head for the next time I see this. It's not going to be perfect, but the next time I see this, I might know two more moves of theory than I did this game, and you keep building on your opening repertoire. So that's interesting. But in the line that black played in the game, where was it here? After, sorry, let's go back to the game for a second. Bishop d6, h4, and h6. That's the other possibility if they're not going to play bishop e4. I just want to make sure I handled this right. Yeah, so it seems like h5 is not too popular, actually, and g4 has scored well for white. Also, just bishop d3 has scored well for white. I'm kind of curious about this g4 idea. So g4... okay, and black's tried a bunch of stuff here. What I would recommend doing in this case is, just check out some games that have been played in these lines to get some feeling for how they go. You can click, and you can open it in a new tab, open some of the games, and just kind of flip through it. In this game, for example, skipping ahead to the critical moment here, g4, okay, g4, e4, knight f5, knight e5. Just trying to build up your pattern recognition about how this opening is played. So this is an interesting attempt, bringing the knight to f5. I would want to do some engine analysis to corroborate the moves, and you really improve your opening understanding from every game you play if you're going through this process. But okay, going back to my game, here it is. I lost it for a second. We had this position. I did not play g4. I played pawn to h5. And okay, bishop h7, bishop e2, I think is reasonable. And I think I like my position here after a4 because it's very hard for you to defend your b5 pawn. That said, maybe I'm being over-optimistic here about my material that I might be winning. Black still has a ton of space, they still have 2 strong bishops, the dark bishop means their king is pretty safe because it's unopposed. And I know there's many lines, even in the Kalashnikov and related lines, where black responds to a4 by just sacking the pawn. So in light of that, maybe I'm being too materialistic here by saying that I'm happy here. So I wonder. So b4, I took with the knight, and I'm up a pawn, but you still have these 2 strong bishops and strong centers. So let's see, queen g5, bishop c4. I just felt like this had to be good for me with the bishop and knight where they are, but I think I underestimated some of your pawn pushes here, especially in time trouble. I think this would be a good training position too, by the way. If you want to set this up against a computer, play it for both colors, you might learn a lot more about how to handle some of these imbalances with the space advantage versus the d5 outpost. But I want to skip ahead a bit and look at this kind of final position. So this was very interesting. I almost blundered here. I almost made a terrible blunder and just totally overlooked your whole idea here with f4. I mean, if I play knight takes d6, I'm saying I think my opponent's an idiot, right? They're just totally walking into this. Of course, they have some kind of idea. Thankfully, I caught myself, found the e3 idea. But that hangs the black queen too, so it's very, very hard to calculate, especially in blitz. This might be a great, tactics trainer puzzle kind of thing. Sit down here for 5 minutes, set it up on a real chessboard, try to figure out what the hell's going on in this position, because it's very, very complex. But let's see, knight takes d6 is the move I played. I'm just curious about this final position. So okay, queen h4, rook f1, bishop f6, takes, queen f7, takes, and I couldn't play bishop a2 here fast enough. This is also a position where it's not totally clear to me what's going on. I'm still threatening checkmate. You have no safe checks. You can play rook takes a2, but I could take with the queen. But that also alleviates my pressure on your bishop. That said, it feels like white is still in a precarious situation here. Black has some sacrifice ideas up their sleeves with like bishop takes b2 and stuff like that. So if you'd like, go ahead and pause your video, think about what you would play here with white, or what you would play here with black, and try to assess this position, figure out what's going on. And I will actually check with the computer, because I feel like there might be some tactics here. Alright, if you're back with me, black actually has a very beautiful game-winning combination here that I did not see. Let's go ahead and flip this around from black's perspective. And it begins with rook c1 check, a move that I did not consider here, just throwing away the rook seemingly for nothing. But the idea is with the rook on c1, the white king doesn't have a key escape square after bishop takes b2, queen d4 check, rook c3 is forced because this light bishop, right? Queen d2, check, and checkmate. So it turns out, even if I didn't lose on time, black was still winning, although I highly doubt that black would have found a move like rook c1 here with, 20 seconds on their clock. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. Please make sure you visit chesspathways.com and get signed up there. It's totally free, only takes 5 seconds, and I will send you a free move-by-move guide to chess thinking when you join. It took me way too long to become a chess master, and I want to help you do it in a fraction of the time. Thanks, and I will see you there.